What's the point of a baby naming ceremony? Hello, I'm Lindy of I Do Ceremonies or lindyirving.com, depending on how you found your way to me today. Welcome to the Ceremony Shed and this video about baby naming ceremonies. And I use that title, a wee bit tongue-in-cheek there, what's the point of baby naming ceremonies? Because somebody said that to me recently, not quite as kind of blunt as that, but I was sharing with somebody the fact that I had a baby naming ceremony coming up. And this person said, I've never quite seen the point of baby naming ceremonies. And it made me think that there are probably many others out there thinking the same thing. And so I thought I'd come on here and share my musings with you about baby naming ceremonies. I have two children and who are now in their mid-30s. Don't know how that happened. But they were both christened as babies. Not because I was a member of the church, or, followed the religion, Christianity in any way. The complete opposite of that. My family would have called themselves atheists. But to be honest, I had no clue about religion and faith, etc., etc. But I did it because I wanted to do something to kind of celebrate this life coming into the world. Now, I would not have used the language that I use now, obviously. I wouldn't have been saying, I want to mark this milestone, this threshold in my life. I just knew inside me that I wanted to do something because my life was so different. I'd been moseying on along, and then all of a sudden you have a baby and boom, my goodness, life is forever changed, right? But not only is a parent's life forever changed, but usually grandparents and the wider family, it's all changed by the arrival of this new life. But we can keep that going, we can keep those ripples going because the wider community has changed and the world in general is changed. Whenever new life comes into the world is changed by it. And in times gone by, that would always have been honoured. It would always have been marked. The communities would have stopped and would have come together. And I'm talking about before the church, before we had christenings, when communities were much more connected to the earth. So there was this sort of earth-based spirituality that people would have honoured these different milestones, including birth. So whenever a new life came in, the baby would be celebrated, but the parents would be celebrated, the mother would be celebrated, because boy, has she been through a journey. And sometimes I think we forget just what a journey mums go through physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to birth this new life into the world. And then of course when the church came along and it became these sort of formal ceremonies, these baptisms, these christenings. And so when I was growing up and when I had my children, it wasn't that I was part of a religion at all, but in the world that I moved in, that's what you did in order to mark the arrival of a child. You had a christening ceremony. And not because, you wanted to absolve the child of original sin or, connect it to God in any way. You just did that, the ceremony bit, so you could have this party after it. And as far as I know, there was no at that time celebrants. I certainly didn't know of any celebrants or any baby naming ceremonies, baby blessings, etc. Because you don't just get baby namings. You get baby welcomes, you get baby blessings, all sorts of different baby ceremonies. But when I had my children, if you wanted to mark it in some way, that's what you did. You had a christening. So I had both my children christened. I don't remember a thing about it. I don't remember a word that was spoken. We were not given anything afterwards to, as a keepsake for the words and the rituals to look back on, for the child to look back on. It was devoid of any depth or meaning or feeling. I can remember that. And then I remember they were in fancy outfits, and then we went and had this party. And I know there are lots of other people out there that have had similar experiences of that. But there's still been this draw to mark this new life, because there's a memory deep in there somewhere, an unconscious memory of when our ancestors would have come together and honoured new life. But one of the downsides of people moving away from their church, moving away from their religion, or moving away from organised religion, I don't think everybody's moved away from faith, but I think a lot of people have moved away from organised religion. But one of the downsides of that is they no longer have these formal ceremonies that would have marked these occasions. And so what often happens is these occasions go uncelebrated. People just don't know how to celebrate them, and so they often don't do anything at all. Now, we are seeing a big change when it comes to betrothal ceremonies, wedding ceremonies. They're getting done completely different. We're starting to see a change with funeral ceremonies, and families taking a much more ownership of what's happening there and bringing in their own rituals and their own needs and what they want to have in the ceremony, rather than what somebody else is dictating to them. But when it comes to baby namings or new life coming into the world, as with other rites of passage that this video is not going to go into, we are not that great at it. We're actually quite poor. And yet, as I said a moment ago, whenever new life comes into the world is changed forever by it. But that new life also brings hope. It brings hope for a better future, a brighter future. That child is going to grow up with their own unique gifts and skills and, attributes and values. And there is such potential there to do good for the world. And so although we can sometimes look at the world and think it's going crazy and Armageddon's just around the corner, that's not only no true, but it's really no healthy. I think if we take our focus to these wee ones that are being born and say, oh my goodness, they are the hope for the future, and therefore that should be acknowledged. It should be marked, and because a ceremony is like a moment in time. It's like pausing time for a moment to turn the spotlight on whatever is happening during that ceremony. And so for a baby naming, we are turning the spotlight. Everybody is turning their attention to that child and the fact that that child's come into the world, and the fact that that child has huge potential for making the world a better place. And that's such a beautiful thing. So on Sunday there, I did a baby naming for a wee girl who's 1, and it was, we're celebrating her first birthday at the same time, and it was just so lovely because all her family and her mum and dad's friends all came together to celebrate this wee girl and to kind of say, we see you and we are really happy you're here, and we cannot wait to see what you do with your life and the path that you take, and how you change the world. That is something really, really beautiful. And to miss that, I think, is a real shame. To just let that pass by is a real shame. But in terms of a naming ceremony, because Sunday's was a naming ceremony, a parent's decision and what to call their child is one of the greatest decisions they'll ever make, because your name forms part of your identity and it travels with you through life. And some people might go on to change their name. I changed my name from Linda to Lindy. I've got a friend who changes her name every few years, depending on, what kind of path her life's taking at that time, and that's absolutely fine. But that name that you're given at birth often sticks with you in some way right through life. So it's really a very important part of your identity. And often that name has been chosen for a reason. Now, it could be that your parents just heard it and loved it. That's good enough. But it could be that you've been called after a great, great granny who's no longer here, and, but lives on through you because that name was chosen by thinking about this person who's part of your life, who's no longer here, taking that name and doing so, capturing a bit of the essence of that person, putting it into that child and sending it out into the world. It's very, very beautiful. But the other thing a baby ceremony does is it honours the parents. And I spoke a moment ago about the change in parents' lives when they have a baby. And we all know if you've had a child, your life is never the same again. And not always in good ways. Obviously, you love them unconditionally, but it can be really tough at times. And I think we sometimes forget and we just expect parents to be full of all the joys when actually they now have to learn how to shape this wee life and how to keep it safe and keep it alive and yada, yada, yada. So a well-crafted baby ceremony can honour the parents and acknowledge that and say, we see you and we support you and your friends and your family here. The wider community supports you as you journey through life with this wee one. So there's so many good benefits in a well-crafted baby ceremony. Nowadays, celebrants will give parents a copy of the ceremony, a beautifully bound copy of the ceremony, so that one day that child can look through it. They can read the words that were spoken, they can read about the rituals that were brought into the ceremony, and they can get a real connection with how their life was honoured when they arrived in the world. And I think that's really beautiful. On Sunday we used a few different rituals. We enveloped the wee girl in a came, and came is a Scottish Gaelic word. It means circle of protection. And so when family and friends come into the ceremony space, they were invited to take a wee stone and write a word on it that they hoped for the wee one's future. And then at a certain point in the ceremony, we asked the people to place it around in a circle to create this came around the child while she was being given her name. So that was with words like love and joy and happiness and fun and friendship. It was really lovely, all these, just holding her in this space. We also had a rose oil blessing, which was really lovely. The family wanted to do some sort of blessing, so we chose rose oil. And we did it in the form of a call and response. So I said a line out to everybody that was present, and they, in unison, said the line back to me. So we created this wave of love coming back to this wee one as we gave her this blessing. Now, it was a non-religious ceremony, but in doing the whole ceremony, but particularly the rituals, because the rituals always point past themselves. The rituals are like a prayer. They're like a conversation, a connection with something greater than us. So when that line was coming back to me, bless this child with joy, and everybody was almost singing that back to me, and I was touching her wee foot with some rose oil, it felt like there was a presence coming through that and blessing this child. No me blessing the child. There was a presence coming through to bless that child. Now, whether that was the love of all of our ancestors, whether it was God, whether it was the great mother, the universe, call it what you will, it was very powerful and emotive and very beautiful. And we had stories from Peter Rabbit, we had readings, we had people speaking. It was just a real celebration of family and friendship and community and love. And I just don't see how that can be anything but beautiful in the life of a child. So why do we have baby naming, or what's the point of a baby naming ceremony? I don't think there's just one point. I think there's lots of different points, and they all come together to create something really beautiful and meaningful and deep in holding this wee one and honouring this new life. So if you have a wee one and you are thinking of having a wee blessing for them, because you can do that at any age, maybe no 35, let's go for it. You won't do it 35, that's fine. They can be done virtually, they can be done, obviously face to face. But if you're thinking of that and you want to reach out, please do. It's hello@lindyirving.com or lindy@idoceremonies.co.uk, and we can talk through your vision and I can help you to bring it together. Okay, hope that's been helpful. Therefore.